Hello, friend. I want to tell you about the Mitsubishi Space Star car. The market is full of various minivans. This time we will take a closer look at the Mitsubishi Space Star, a car that is considered trouble-free, but is not beautiful. Are the stereotypes about Japanese reliability justified in this case? What to look for when buying this model? Which engines to avoid? The Mitsubishi Space Star engine range does not include overly dynamic drive units, but the character of the car does not require it at all. Those who want to move quickly from point A to point B will consider the top 122 horsepower GDI engine. This is a true masterpiece of Japanese engineering. After all, it is the first petrol engine in the history of the automotive industry, with electronically controlled direct fuel injection. In the city, it consumes just over 8L100 kilometers. On the highway, it is satisfied with just 6L100 kilometers and reaches the first 100 in 10.3 seconds. All these parameters are quite sufficient for a minivan, but unfortunately there is a catch. What is it? Since this injection system was a pioneering invention, it also had numerous imperfections and tended to break down. Users of cars with a 1.8 GDI engine also complained about carbon deposits in the head. Eliminating the faults was not and still is not cheap. It is better to give up this modern unit and opt for another engine variant. Apart from the lack of dynamics, the weakest version reaches the first 100 in 14.3 seconds. There are no serious reservations. In order to avoid unpleasant surprises, it is better to replace the timing belt along with all the accessories immediately after buying the car. It is not worth believing the seller's assurances. Under the hood of the Mitsubishi Space Star, a Renault diesel engine can also work. This one is also not particularly dynamic. Depending on the power, it accelerates the car to the first 100 in about 11 to 12 seconds. Fuel consumption? In city traffic, 7.5 Ls/100 kilometers. In the countryside, just under 6 Ls/100 kilometers. Durability? Since the design is already a few years old, one must expect equipment failures typical of diesel engines. The most common failures are, of course, injectors, turbocharger, and dual-mass flywheel. In addition, engine oil leaks occur. Don't count on someone buying a diesel just to drive the car once a month. For the average minivan buyer, the drivetrain and suspension design are not very important. What is important is that the car handles road irregularities appropriately, while providing good ride comfort. Despite this, it is worth mentioning that in the Mitsubishi Space Star, the drive is transmitted only to the front axle wheels. The front suspension uses McPherson struts, and the rear has an independent wishbone system. The system is tuned quite comfortably. The choice of transmissions, as befits a Japanese car of that period, is modest, with a choice of 4-speed automatic and 5-speed manual. Safety? Unfortunately, it is quite poor. The 3 stars it received in the Euro NCAP crash tests are nothing to be proud of. After all, the design dates back to the second half of the 1990s. Used Mitsubishi Space Star, common faults. As is well known, the biggest problem with Japanese designs is poor corrosion protection. Where does rust attack the Mitsubishi Space Star? First of all, on the rear wheel arches, but it is also worth checking the engine cover and the boot lid. The drive joints are not very durable either. It starts innocently with a crack in the rubber covers. The suspension also has its weaknesses. On European roads, metal and rubber elements quickly give out. Sometimes the wishbones get damaged, and sometimes even the springs break. The upper mounts of the McPherson struts are a common problem with this model. Fortunately, most of the units were included in the service campaign. The gearbox links are also not very durable. Although their replacement is quite simple and cheap, it is worth checking their condition by taking the car for a test drive. Before buying a specific Mitsubishi Space Star, be sure to check the condition of the brake lines. In some cases, they may be heavily corroded. Seized rear calipers are another common problem. The result? The handbrake stops working. Electrics also like to play tricks sometimes. From time to time, the light switch, the buttons for electric windows, or the onboard computer display fail. The quality of the materials used to make the upholstery and the dashboard is also questionable. The driver's seat wears out quite quickly, and the plastics make disturbing sounds. The Mitsubishi Space Star is a rather odd car. Theoretically, it should satisfy those looking for a family minivan, but despite the capacious passenger space, luggage has to fit into 370L. The suspension is tuned for comfort, but often requires the intervention of a mechanic. The braking system is also disappointing. The pads wear out at a dizzyingly fast pace, And there is also the constantly faulty handbrake. What else is wrong here? The quality of the interior materials and the shape of the seats. A longer seat would definitely be useful for longer journeys. The unsophisticated styling can also be a hindrance. The car has aged quickly visually. The main argument in favor of this design is the low frequency of failures. At least that is the common opinion. Unfortunately, in practice, it varies. This conviction, combined with fuel-efficient engines and a low purchase price, are the arguments that most often convince potential customers to buy this model. The Mitsubishi Space Star is a car for people who live with common sense. There are many used cars on the market from European showrooms with documented service history. These are certainly much safer propositions than accident-damaged cars imported from the West. Unfortunately, the car loses its attractiveness year by year because the competition looks much better and offers more. Thanks for listening to me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and rate my video. If you know of any problems with this car that I haven't mentioned, be sure to write about them in the comments.